My family said I owed them everything, so they robbed me, trashed my car, smeared my name at work, and bragged about it until I had them arrested. I, 35M, used to be the kind of guy who believed that family came before everything. I was the good son, the reliable cousin, the dependable older brother. When our mom died and dad left us with nothing but debt and a bunch of cracked photo albums, I stepped up. I was 22, fresh out of college with a software engineering degree and a burning need to take care of everyone. And I mean everyone. I helped my younger brother pay off his student loans. Helped my older sister cover rent after her divorce. I even let my cousin crash on my couch for almost 6 months after he got fired for being misunderstood. He got caught stealing snacks and vape cartridges from the company break room. I never asked for anything back. Just figured they'd do the same for me if I ever needed it. God, was I wrong? Over the years, I became their emergency fund, their therapist, their car service, their emotional punching bag. But I kept giving. I told myself, they're family. That's what you do. I bought my mom's old house after the bank threatened foreclosure, let my sister and her kids move into it rent-free. I paid for my brother's second rehab stay even after he cussed me out the first time he relapsed. Every time someone came to me with a sob story, I gave in. I thought I was doing the right thing. But that's the funny thing about constantly giving, people start expecting. Then demanding. Then resenting you when you finally say no. The first cracks. It started subtle. I'd say no to a request and suddenly I'd get passive-aggressive texts from my sister. Must be nice having your cozy little bachelor life while some of us are raising actual humans. Or from my cousin, I bet you wouldn't hesitate if it was your real family asking. My brother once asked me for $5,000 for a business opportunity. When I said I couldn't swing that kind of cash right now, he straight up told me you wouldn't have SHT if it weren't for us. We're the reason you have a purpose. Asterisk. That one stung. Hard. It wasn't long before it shifted from guilt-tripping to straight-up entitlement. I started getting texts from unknown numbers asking about my availability to co-sign a car loan. My cousin apparently gave out my number to some of his friends and told them I was generous with money. He called it networking. When I confronted him, he shrugged and said, "You act like you're some big shot now. Don't forget where you came from." I didn't forget. I just thought where you came from wasn't supposed to try and bury you the second you stop carrying everyone. Escalation. Things got real ugly about 6 months ago. I finally started setting boundaries. I said no when my sister asked for $1,200 to help with a family trip to Disney. I declined my cousin's request to borrow my car while his was in the shop. I started pulling back, keeping things polite but distant. That's when the retaliation began. I came out to my car after work and found it keyed all along the passenger side. Someone had jammed gum into the door lock and poured what I think was soda into the gas tank. The repairs cost me $1,800. When I posted about it on Instagram, my cousin commented, "Karma's huh?" A few weeks later, I started hearing weird rumors at work. That I'd been using company funds to buy personal tech. That I'd been badmouthing the CTO. Someone anonymously sent HR a folder with fake screenshots of Slack messages I never sent, but they were convincing as hell. HR didn't punish me, but they started keeping a closer eye on me. Then my sister had the audacity to tell my girlfriend, now ex, that I was probably cheating because I'd been acting suspicious lately. I found out weeks later from one of her friends that my own sister was trying to sabotage my relationship because she didn't trust women who didn't have kids. What finally broke me? They bragged about it. I saw a group text between my brother, cousin, and sister. Someone left their phone unlocked at my house that straight up said, "Let's see how high and mighty he acts when he's got nothing left." They laughed about the car. The HR stuff. Even the breakup. They called it humbling the golden boy. I'm not proud of what happened next. But I don't regret it. After I saw that group text, something in me just cracked. It was like this fog lifted. For years, I told myself they were just going through hard times. That I was strong enough to carry the burden for everyone. That it wasn't malicious, it was just messy love. But seeing them joke about wrecking my life? Laughing like they were playing a prank instead of dismantling everything I'd built? That was the moment I realized they didn't love me. Not really. They loved what I did for them. They loved that I was reliable, predictable, soft-hearted enough to keep giving even when they spit in my face. But the second I stopped being useful, I became the enemy. I spent the whole night pacing around my apartment. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their words, humbling the golden boy. The car, the HR report, the fake messages, this wasn't a tantrum. It was a coordinated attack. A punishment. And you know what? I let it happen for too damn long. So I did what I should have done years ago. I stopped protecting them. How I fought back. First thing I did was buy a bunch of cheap security cameras. I had a feeling the car thing wasn't a one-off. I installed one facing the driveway, another over my door, and a third pointing at the apartment hallway. I also started recording phone calls when they came in, especially from my cousin and brother. Oregon's a one-party consent state. I checked. Twice. It didn't take long before I started getting evidence. 2 weeks later, my cousin showed up at my place unannounced. I didn't let him in, but he started yelling through the door. Stuff like, "You're really gonna let your own blood get evicted while you sit in your little tech boy tower? You owe us, man." He said it 3 times. You owe us. That phrase had haunted me since I was 15 and working part-time while my sister stayed home with her kids and told me I should pay for groceries because she was doing the real work. You owe us. You owe us. You owe us. I kept that voicemail. Then came the nail in the coffin. One morning I got a call from my boss. Calm but serious. "Hey, can you come in early?" I knew what it was before I even got there. Turns out someone had left a folder in his mailbox. Printed screenshots, again, of Slack messages, emails, even a supposed confession that I was stealing data. It was all fake. And my boss, bless him, had the decency to believe in my track record. But he said, this isn't going to go away if we don't take it seriously. So I showed him everything. The harassment. The threats. The voicemail. The photos of my car keyed. I told him it was my own family doing this. And he just looked at me like he'd never seen me before. He said, "Jesus Christ, man. You've been walking around with this weight on your back and we had no idea." We took it to legal. I handed over the texts, recordings, photos, everything. I asked him if I should go to the police. He said, "Honestly? You probably should have already. What happens when you turn on the people who raised you?" I filed a report that afternoon. The police were shockingly professional. Calm. They didn't treat me like I was being dramatic or exaggerating. Turns out when you show up with a literal binder of documented harassment, vandalism, and identity smearing, they take you seriously. They launched an investigation. They pulled security footage from my work parking lot and matched it to my cousin's car. They traced an IP address used to send the fake HR emails back to my brother's apartment. They even subpoenaed the phone company for location pings on the night my car got trashed. It all lined up. They arrested my cousin first, public intoxication and property damage. He was yelling at the officers the entire time, screaming that I was tearing the family apart and that I was a traitor. My sister went on Facebook and called me a backstabber, tagging half our extended family in a long post about how he forgot where he came from. Then came the police visit to my brother's place. He got picked up for obstruction and digital impersonation. And you know what my family did? They doubled down. They started a group chat without me, called it The Betrayal, and someone screenshotted every post. I got sent clips where they said I was a disgrace, that I'd sold out to the system, and my favorite, all because we asked for a little help. A little help. After all that. After the arrests, I thought maybe things would calm down. Like the threat of consequences would make them stop. Maybe finally they'd see the line they'd crossed. They didn't. If anything, it kicked off a new level of crazy. The day after my cousin was arrested, my sister showed up at my apartment. I didn't let her in. I watched her on the security cam through my phone as she screamed at the door for 10 minutes straight, pacing the hallway barefoot and in tears. At one point she even sat down and started crying, the loud, performative kind like you see on reality TV. I recorded everything. You called the police on your own flesh and blood? What happened to family? To loyalty? You think your tech job makes you better than us? Then she left a note under my door. I still have it. Scribbled in rushed handwriting. You owe us everything. You wouldn't even have that job without me watching your ass in high school. I fed you. I helped raise you. And this is how you repay us. Fed me? Helped raise me? She used to lock me in the bathroom when I was 9 so she could sneak her boyfriend in. She never packed a lunch for me, never picked me up from school, never once gave a shit unless she needed something. But she believed the version of events. That twisted lie where I owed them for sacrifices they never made. And you know what really made it burn? My aunt and 2 uncles called me. Not to check if I was okay. Not to ask why things had gotten so bad. But to say things like, maybe you could have handled it a little more quietly, huh? Was it really worth getting the cops involved? This family's been through enough, don't you think? No one asked me what it felt like to watch my life unravel because of the people I used to spend holidays with. No one asked about the panic attacks, the insomnia, the shame of walking into work knowing everyone knew something went down, even if I was cleared. All they cared about was the image of the family. The lie. Keeping the rot hidden under the floorboards. The legal fallout. Pressing charges wasn't easy. Part of me still hesitated, this deep, sick guilt that was programmed into me. That voice in my head saying, it's just family stuff. Handle it privately. I had to fight that voice every day. But the DA moved forward. My brother pled not guilty. Of course he did. Claimed the email thing was a prank and that I was overreacting because I couldn't take a joke. He said that in court. He looked me in the eye and said, you always were a dramatic little. My cousin didn't even show remorse. Laughed when they read the charges. Told the officer escorting him out, this dude's trying to be Batman. Thinks he's the hero. And maybe I did. Maybe I needed to feel like I was finally doing the right thing for me, not for them. Because here's the truth, I spent my entire life trying to earn love from people who only knew how to take. I mistook fear for respect. Obligation for loyalty. Guilt for love. And once I stopped paying the price, they showed me what I was really worth to them, nothing. The court dates dragged on for months. I had to give testimony. Submit statements. Relive everything over and over again. Meanwhile, my work reputation took a hit. Not officially, my boss was great, but coworkers whispered. People talked. One guy at the office pulled me aside and said, hey man, I heard about your family. That's rough. Then asked if I was sure they were really behind the sabotage. I just looked at him and said, yeah, I'm sure. I watched them destroy my car and then laugh about it in a group text. The emotional aftermath. You'd think I'd feel victorious. Like I finally stood up for myself. And part of me does. But mostly, I feel wrecked. It's like mourning people who aren't dead. These were the faces at my graduation. The ones who helped move my college furniture. The ones I called when I got promoted, who I sent Christmas cards to. People I loved. And they treated me like a villain for choosing peace over self-sacrifice. I went to therapy. That's something I'm not ashamed to admit. Because untangling this knot of guilt and betrayal? I couldn't do it alone. My therapist asked me one question that hit me harder than anything in court. What would you tell a child if their parents, siblings, and cousins all hurt them this way? Would you tell them to forgive? Or would you tell them to protect themselves? I cried. For the first time in 10 years, I cried like a little kid. Because the answer was obvious and I had never once given myself that permission. There's this moment after the storm, when everything's been torn apart, but the silence feels worse than the chaos. That's where I was. The court dates were ongoing. The family group chat had imploded into name-calling and splintering alliances, and I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. For the first time since I was a teenager, there were no calls asking for favors, no guilt-tripping texts, no invitations to family dinners that came with a hidden price tag. And that silence, it messed with my head. Because when you grow up in a family where love is conditional, where your worth is tied to what you provide, you start to believe that peace is suspicious. That if no one's asking you for anything, something must be wrong. But nothing was wrong. In fact, things were finally painfully right. I started doing things I hadn't done in years. Walking without checking my phone every 5 minutes for some crisis. Cooking for one without feeling like I was failing someone. Sleeping in on weekends and not waking up with dread in my stomach. But the quiet didn't last. The desperation phase. Once it became clear that I wasn't backing down, once my brother and cousin realized this wasn't going to quietly go away, they flipped the script. They went from bragging about wrecking my life to pretending it had all been a misunderstanding. My sister called me from a different number and left a voicemail. Look, we were just angry. Okay? You don't understand what it's like trying to raise kids on one income. We lashed out, but we didn't mean for it to get this far. Please don't let them lock him up. He's your brother. Not once did she say sorry. Not once did she acknowledge what they'd done. It was all about me being the problem because I let it get this far. Then came the letters. Actual handwritten letters from my cousin. From jail. One of them said, "You used to be my best friend. You were the only one who ever had my back. I'm sorry it got messy, but you've got to see how this looks to the rest of the family. You're making a show of it." A show? They literally slandered me at work, destroyed my car, turned my own girlfriend against me, and laughed about it like it was a TikTok prank. And I'm the one making a show of it? I didn't respond, but I did forward the letters to my attorney, just in case. The dominoes fall. The fallout wasn't just legal. Turns out, my cousin had been using my name as a fake reference on job applications. The employer found out during a background check. They reached out to me directly, confused why I'd endorsed, someone who had just been charged with fraud and harassment. When I explained everything, the employer reported him too. My brother's apartment lease got flagged when his landlord found out about the digital impersonation charge. They didn't renew his lease. Then the big one. My sister, who'd been milking the single mom sympathy narrative for years, lost her side gig. She ran a little parent coaching blog and YouTube channel, talking about resilience and communication and emotional maturity. When someone tipped off her sponsors about her arrest for vandalism and conspiracy, they dropped her overnight. She sent me an email that started with, "I hope you're happy." I deleted it without reading the rest. What liberation actually feels like. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't fireworks and slow-mo justice scenes. Liberation, for me, was quiet. It was sitting on my couch one night in sweatpants, drinking tea, looking around my clean, empty apartment, and realizing, no one is going to ask me for anything today. No one is going to guilt me, scream at me, or lie to my boss. No one is going to remind me what I owe them. I was free, but I was grieving too. Not for them, but for the fantasy I'd built. The idea that I could fix a broken family by being the good one. That if I just worked harder, gave more, stayed quieter, they'd love me for who I was. They never did. And maybe they never will. That's what I mourned. The version of my life where I had a real family. The version where they celebrated my wins instead of resenting them. The version where I could trust the people who claimed to love me. The last straw. I thought it was over. I really did. But of course it wasn't. Because people like that don't stop. They escalate. And they only respect consequences when they're staring down the barrel of them. So what did they do? They tried to sue me for defamation. My brother and cousin filed a civil suit claiming I'd intentionally damaged their reputation and caused emotional distress. They included screen grabs from my social media posts, therapy quotes, and vague subtweets, claiming they were proof I was smearing them publicly. My lawyer laughed when he read the complaint. We countersued for legal fees and filed a motion to dismiss, which was granted within weeks. The judge actually said you cannot claim to be defamed by someone quoting your own words and actions. I walked out of that courtroom and just breathed. For the first time in what felt like years, my chest didn't feel like it was carrying a boulder. After the defamation suit got thrown out, the rest of the legal process moved faster. My cousin took a plea deal, vandalism and harassment, probation, community service, court-mandated anger management. He showed up to one of the hearings in a family over everything hoodie like it was some badge of honor. I didn't even look at him. The judge wasn't impressed either. Called his behavior targeted, sustained, and vindictive. My brother fought his charges longer, too stubborn to admit guilt. But eventually, he realized the evidence wasn't going away. He'd used his own Wi-Fi to send the fake emails, hadn't masked the IP, and the police had GPS pings from his phone near my apartment the night my car got trashed. Idiot. He pled guilty to identity theft and defamation with intent to harm. No jail time, but a record. He can't work in IT anymore. Not that he was ever actually qualified. The rest of my family? They went quiet. No more voicemails. No more crying texts. The group chat died. Even my aunts and uncles stopped calling when they realized I wasn't just going through a phase. I think my refusal to back down scared them. They'd spent so long seeing me as the soft one, the pushover. Turns out the soft one has teeth when he finally bites back. Facing the mirror. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing I'd let it happen for years. That every time I picked up their calls, drove someone to a job interview, handed over money, fixed a problem, they were writing a story in their heads. A story where I owed them because I was lucky, and they were struggling. They never saw the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m. coding just to keep my job. They never asked how I was doing when my ex left me. They never even remembered my birthday unless I reminded them. They didn't love me. They loved the version of me that made them feel comfortable, useful, superior. And when that version stopped showing up, they destroyed him. I had to grieve that version of me too. The one who kept showing up even when he was bleeding. The guy who stayed quiet at family dinners while being mocked for acting rich or thinking he's better than us. The guy who paid for repairs to a house he didn't live in and groceries he didn't eat, and therapy sessions for people who laughed at the idea of therapy. He's gone now. He had to die for me to survive. Healing isn't clean. People love talking about healing like it's a straight line. Like you wake up one day and it all makes sense and you just move on. That's not how it worked for me. There were nights I still checked my phone, half expecting some text from my sister with a sob story. Sometimes I dreamed about those family barbecues before everything went to hell, and I'd wake up disoriented, panicked, wondering if I'd made a mistake. There were moments I missed them. Not them as they are, but the idea of them. The potential. The version I used to believe in. But then I'd remember that text my cousin sent. Let's see how high and mighty he acts when he's got nothing left. They wanted to see me destroyed. They tried to break me. And when I didn't fall apart, they acted like I was the monster. So no, I didn't regret anything. The day I visited the house, a few weeks after everything settled, I drove past the old family house. The one I bought. The one I'd let my sister live in for 4 years rent-free. It was empty now. She'd moved out after she lost her job and couldn't keep up with utilities. It looked sad. Overgrown lawn. Cracked window. Paint peeling around the edges. Like a memory decaying in real time. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a few minutes. Not to reminisce. Not to feel sorry. But to remind myself. I walked around back and looked at the garage door. The one I fixed after my cousin crashed his bike into it and never apologized. The porch light I installed. The flower beds I dug out with my bare hands. And then I left. I didn't go inside. I didn't take anything. I didn't need to. That house wasn't my home anymore. It never really was. The conversation that broke me and freed me. 2 months ago, I ran into my dad's brother at the grocery store. We hadn't spoken since the whole thing went public. He asked if I had a minute to talk, and against my better judgment, I said yes. He looked tired, old. He said, "You know, I don't agree with how they treated you, but family's family. Maybe one day you can forgive them." I looked him right in the eyes and said, "Forgiveness doesn't mean putting the knife back in the hand that stabbed you." He didn't know what to say, just nodded and walked away. But I stood there, in the canned goods aisle, heart pounding like a war drum, and realized I was finally done seeking approval. Done making excuses. Done playing nice to keep the peace in a family that never cared about peace, only control.